Hi again then guys, and welcome to another movie review. And of course, as promised a couple of days ago, I said that I was going to review The Monster from 2015. Now this was directed by Brian Bettino. It revolves around mother and daughter who are basically thrust into this situation revolving, you guessed it, a monster. They're driving in a car, they hit something, they're forced to stop, and then it's a basically survival horror within a creature feature. Now, I'm going to do something in this review that some people might not like, but I think some of you actually will like, and that's why I'm going to do it. There aren't many opportunities that I get to tie my books into a movie review. This is one of those occasions. So I'm actually going to bring up a couple of times the relation that my second novel has, called SPORE, to this movie. Because I'll get to it in a second, I'm going to get to this movie first, but stick around for that. I'm going to, as I said, intermingle it in there, and I think you might enjoy my book as well if you enjoyed this movie, and vice versa. So, this movie's plot is very simple. As I just said, mother and daughter in a car, they crash into something in the middle of nowhere, and they're basically waiting to be rescued by a tow truck. Creature starts hunting them, and they have to survive. Very simple plot. Of course, you can't really get more into it than that without spoiling stuff, so that is the essential idea. One of the interesting things that I think is beneficial to know about the film, though, is the way it's told. And this is something which the write-ups and the trailers don't really tell you. This isn't a spoiler, because you start to notice it very early on in the film. And basically, the story is told wherein it jumps between the present situation and memories from the past. And each of the memories from the past kind of ties in these little ways into the moment. And I think that was an interesting way of breaking down the story from a filmmaking point of view, because it made the movie feel like it had more layers than it easily could have. Now this, to me, is one of those movies that some people could probably absolutely love, and other people might say, I was annoyed by it, so many stupid decisions, I could never watch it again. I get that, but at the same time, it definitely doesn't fall anywhere near into that depth of pit as many other movies do. Now, I can fully understand that kind of reasoning. At the same time, though, I would say there actually aren't that many stupid decisions in this movie compared to most horror films, especially most horror films of this kind of genre, of creature feature, monster film. Now, the way in which this is similar to my second book is that my second book revolves around a girl in her late teens who is in England, so completely different to this movie, which is in the States, but she's in England at an abandoned barn in the woods with a ton of other teens at an illegal rave. The cops show up, all the teens scatter, and she, in the dark, runs into a tree and knocks herself out. She wakes up in the back of the cop car who's taken her home, and then they hit something. And from then on, through the book, it's a horror survival story, except it's not the kind of creature that's in this film. So although there are definite similarities between my book and this movie, I think that if you enjoy one, you'll definitely enjoy the other, because although the concept between my book and the movie is similar, the way the story is told, the characters, the strength of the characters, choices that are made, and certainly the monster, are totally different. And in fact, my second book is much more of an homage to a movie called Splinter from 2008, which I'm a huge fan of. Kind of an homage between that and The Thing, because, of course, I had to work in The Thing somewhere. But as far as this movie goes, stuff that I did like, stuff that I didn't like before, of course, we get into spoiler territory over here. Stuff that I did like, I like the casting. The mother and daughter feel realistic, they look like normal people, they have this broken relationship, which, of course, ties in and is instrumental to the movie working, because there's a vast difference between making a survival horror when all of the characters get along and work really well together. Maybe they're professionals, they are all experts in their field, and of course you know which movie I'm working towards. They're all scientists, they all know how to think things through well, and even then the communication breaks down, and I'm of course referring to The Thing. On the other end of the spectrum, you can have a movie where nobody knows what they're doing, nobody has a clue how to take the lead, and yet they're all trying to basically save their own ass and survive the situation. I'm referring to The Mist. Those two approaches can both work. It's a similar concept. This movie takes the latter. The mother and daughter are not survivalists, and they don't even have a fully working relationship. But that works for the film, because much like the rest of the movie, everything looks slightly broken. Even the mother and daughter, they don't look glamorous, they just look real. And the car they're in, it's not some, rugged thing that can take a beating, it's just a car. The place that they are, it's a road that barely anyone goes down. It's normal stuff. The more believable you can make the rest of the film, the more people's suspension of disbelief about a monster can be. And that's something which a lot of movie makers, I think, overlook. You can very easily make the situation so unbelievable that by the time you get to the monster, it just doesn't work. Whereas making everything else feel grounded and almost flawed, make the characters, maybe a little bit unlikable, a little bit broken, and then something that is more fantastical can insert itself into the story and actually work more. Think of Alien, for instance. Most sci-fi horror movies, they're very clean and crisp and futuristic with characters who always do the right thing. In Alien, they're just normal people. Dirty clothes, just eating their food around a cafe, a cafeteria like anyone would in like an oil rig or something. It makes it feel that much more gritty and realistic, so that when you introduce this crazy alien, it almost feels more real. Whereas if you put, for instance, that same alien into, 2001 A Space Odyssey, it would have looked completely out of place. That's why HAL works in that movie and the Xenomorph works in Alien, because it suits the tone and the visual style. Likewise in this movie. Now, as far as my recommendation, should you check out the movie, should you not? Maybe stuff that's good to watch out for, negative to watch out for. I would recommend watching it, primarily if you are already a monster movie fan. And the reason why I say that is because this is not necessarily a movie that's going to make you love monster movies. But it is a movie which will satisfy that craving that all of us who love monster movies have, because we get so few good ones, let's be honest. So it is nice to be able to recommend it to my core audience, but even people outside of that who maybe want to try and get into horror in a more creature feature sense. This is definitely one of the easier recommendations I would make. There's nothing, disturbing in the movie. It's a fun ride. It plays on a number of cliches that you would expect it to have, but it works. It still works. There are definitely a couple of stupid choices and things which certain characters simply wouldn't do. For example, non-spoiler still, this little girl is established clearly and a number of times to not be a courageous kid. But without any kind of arc, right in the middle of the story, she just starts walking towards the darkness to see what's in there. Nope, that doesn't work. The kid isn't like that. There's been no arc there. She just went from being scared to not being scared for no apparent reason. So there are certain things in there which do let it down a little bit, but nothing that ruins the film overall. Now, as far as spoiler talk, what spoiler talk could there be for me to get into? Well, of course, the primary thing I think to get into would be the backstory between the mother and the daughter, with this abusive relationship that they've had. I find it curious because in most movies, you have to set up a backstory like this in order to care when a certain character dies. And although I could see what they were going for, every new piece of information that you find out about this mother in particular makes you like her less. And I found that a very interesting choice. It's almost like instead of the movie wanting to make you feel sad about her death, it's trying to make you feel, oh, she finally did something worthwhile. And I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's what I took away from it. Because, in effect, it's kind of like, oh, you're finally a mother. Like, am I supposed to clap for that? You finally did what you signed up for when you had a kid in the first place. So, it's an interesting story arc. The girl, of course, has the primary arc of picking up her courage, going from wanting to apparently kill her mother from that one flashback with the knife to actually not wanting her mother to die, which, of course, she's a kid, so going back and forth between I hate you and I love you is nothing new there. But I found the mother's arc in particular very interesting. I could fully see two people watching this same movie and coming out of it with a completely different feeling in that regard. I came out of it with the feeling that I mentioned. Somebody else could come out feeling really sad about her death. And I could fully understand both because the movie does play with your emotions. That's cool. I like that. It's imaginative. It goes beyond being just that kind of monster flick. Now, there weren't actually that many things that I specifically didn't like about the film, and that's always a good thing to be able to say. One of the things that I found a little bit inconsistent was regarding the tow truck driver. I believe was his name Russell, I think, something like that. He didn't make any noise the first time he was dragged off. Every other time somebody gets attacked in the movie, they make a hell of a lot of noise. Even he does when he gets attacked the second time. Why? Well, let's be honest. The plot called for it. That's the only reason why. That's one of the kind of things that I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of suspending logic for the sake of a scare. Because, in my opinion, that's lazy writing. And it's one of the things that I try to never do in my books. That, for instance, never happens in my book, SPORE. Because I don't write stupid characters, I don't write plot conveniences, I write things that I believe could legitimately happen in a scene. That was purely placed in the movie just to make it eerie. Oh, where's he disappeared to? If you just got bitten and dragged away by an animal, there's no way you're going to be quiet about it. The only way that you would be quiet is if it grabbed you by the throat, in which case he would have never come back. Speaking of which, how did he come back? Everything about this creature shows that it is completely savage. It's basically like an oversized, muscle-bound panther crossed with a gorilla. So, how would you ever get away from that? He didn't have a flashlight. He didn't have fire. Again, kind of a plot convenience there. Doesn't ruin the movie, but it's something to note. I would, though, love to hear your thoughts down below. It's a movie for me which I liked. I wouldn't say that I loved it, though. I don't know if I would ever need to watch it again. And the curious thing for me was, even though I've written a book which is similar to it, I still didn't particularly feel like I had to watch this day one. That was interesting to me, because usually a movie like this appeals directly to my sensibilities, but for whatever reason, this one didn't as much. After watching it, I'm glad I did, but I would be very curious to know down below, what did you feel about the film? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you feel maybe like I do, which is almost somewhere in between? I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I don't know if I need to see it again. Now, to finalise the self-promotion of this video, if you like the idea of reading my book, SPORE, especially after watching this movie, then you can click the link down below this video. It takes you to my Amazon author page. Click on the book called SPORE. You can get it for, I believe it's like $1.99 for the Kindle version, $4.99 for the paperback. I love the paperback myself. It just feels cool to have the book in your hands. And yeah, check it out. I think you'll like it. I believe you can read like the first couple of pages for free. Yeah, check it out. I'd love to hear what you think about that as well. If you love this movie, I guarantee you'll love my book. If you're maybe a little bit underwhelmed with this movie, I think my book might appeal to you more. It does to me, but then again, I wrote it. But overall, that's it for this review. Of course, I will see you guys on the channel next time. And until then, thanks for watching.